Hello and welcome to the Ask Assaad show. I'm Michael Gaines and glad you are joining us on our continuing special coverage of the Middle East as we look to bring you experts and conversations from the Ask Assaad show for this special series. So our goal is to continue to bring insight out as we bring those perspectives and conversations. And today's conversation is certainly a good one as we look to continue our ongoing coverage there. And so our guest today is actually joining us live from the Middle East. So going to be looking to have a great conversation with Assaad and our guest, Rami Bakir. So before we get to our guest, we're going to go ahead and bring in Shelby Dumaine to talk about how you can not only be a part of today's conversation, but also provide us some insight into future topics that we can cover. So, hey, Shelby.
Hey, Michael. So I think our audience is one of the best parts of this show. I love seeing everyone tune in every week and really get involved in asking questions of our guests. And the best way to do that is simply by commenting below. So whether you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, you can go ahead and go to the comment section and let us know any questions you have for our guest, or if you would like to, ask Assaad, as the name of the show goes. If you'd like to ask Assaad anything as well, you can go ahead and put that in the comments. Speaking of, just a little test run of the comment section, if you want to go ahead and let us know where you're tuning in from. I think, that's one of my favorite parts of the show. Like I said, I love the audience, but I really love seeing where in the world everybody is watching from and joining the show from. So go ahead and let us know there, and we'll kind of take a look. And we always love seeing everyone in the comment section. And then after the show, if you have another question, maybe you want to learn more about the topic, or even if you have an idea for a future episode, something you'd like to see us cover here on the Ask Assaad show, you can do it a couple of ways. So the first is you can email us. The email is askassad@nov.com. So that's on the screen now. And the other way is you can actually give us a phone call. So you can call us, you can leave a voicemail, and I always like to say you can stay anonymous, or you can let us know where your name and maybe where you work or where you're from. And that number is country code +1 346 223 4799. So whether it's in the comments, through our email, or through our phone number, I'd love to hear from you. So go ahead and let us know your questions.
All right. Well, thanks, Shelby. I think that'll be great. And yeah, see some of the countries are already rolling in. So it looks like we've got folks all the way from Dubai to Australia. So glad that everyone is joining us today. So as always, want to go ahead and now transition over to bringing in the show's namesake. So Assaad Mahana, NOV's Director of Business Strategy. So Assaad, good to see you today.
Good to see you, Michael. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. And so as always, I know I'm a broken record, but there is always something happening. I think you have probably one of the best seats in that I don't know if it's a burden or a blessing, however you want to say it, but you constantly get to see the goings and comings of the energy industry. And so this past week has been no exception.
That's right, Michael. I think just like every week this year, we've had another week full of news. This time, it was another drilling contractor that's filed for Chapter 11. In fact, a really good company. This just been out of luck. Pacific Drilling has struggled with another bankruptcy after filing for another Chapter 11 just only 3 years ago. We're seeing a continuation of a struggle in the industry with drilling contractors not able to sustain and service their debts, having to resort to a restructuring of their financial structure, work with their lenders to turn debt into equity. And it's not the first time we've seen that this year. Of course, we recently saw other drilling contractors do the same, really big companies, good companies, having to resort to Chapter 11. We saw Valaris, we saw Noble Drilling, and before that, there was Diamond Offshore that started it off. What I want to also say is that it's interesting that we see drilling contractors filing for Chapter 11 you might have also noticed, Michael, operators have tended to merge instead of filing for bankruptcy. And there's a good reason for that. And some of the mergers we've seen, whether it's the one that started with Chevron and Noble, then we saw Devon and WPX, and more recently ConocoPhillips Concho, as well as Pioneer Natural Resources with Parsley. All of those were mostly Michael, full equity stock acquisition. So really there was no cash exchanged.
And is that an important distinction there?
Yeah, absolutely. Because then there's really not much for that operator to divest or to spend on. And I think the other important factor is that operators, although they run out of new development, they're still producing from existing fields. So you still have an operating cash flow coming to as an operator coming in. But if you're a service company or a drilling contractor without a contract, you don't have any cash to support that debt. So if we look at this from a return on equity perspective, really high capital for drilling contractors has to have high debt, really isn't well favored in this environment, leading drilling contractors to go more towards a Chapter 11 resort, while operators tend to find a merger solution with a bigger player.
So, I know that, in kind of now moving over to our focus today, we're continuing our conversation in looking at the Middle East and some of the some key items and key topics today. So maybe you can kind of give us a little perspective on where we're going to be headed in our conversation today.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we started this Middle East series a few weeks ago, you and I, Michael, with having a focus on a region that's been a big player in the overall industry worldwide. 30 million barrels come from the Middle East alone consistently. Shale, as we said previously, has taken the spotlight because it's been such a volatile space. But really, the Middle East has been the backbone of supply of hydrocarbons. We first had Ed Whitnell from NOV, who's the VP of Operations with our rig group based in Dubai, who told us a little bit about what the landscape for NOV looks like in the Middle East. What sort of investments have we made? We focused a little bit, spent a little bit of time on the JV with Aramco out of many other projects coming up in the region. We then hosted Mr. Qasim Al-Qayyumi from ADNOC, Senior Vice President of Exploration and Upstream Technology. And today is a continuation of that focus with maybe more of a lens towards the production aspect from Brownfields, with a good friend of mine and a great leader from the region with NOV, Rami Bakir.
Right. Yeah. So we're glad to have Rami Bakir. He is the Vice President of Operations for NOV for the Middle East, North Africa region for the Completion and Production Solutions segment, and has been in the industry. We were talking right before the show for going on 27 years, so have seen quite a bit. So Rami, thanks for joining us. And for those folks that wish they could be world travelers, where are you joining us from today?
Well, I'm now in Abu Dhabi, actually. So just to travel, got to travel
Sure.
again, Dubai to Abu Dhabi. And thank you for hosting me on. I'm very privileged for hosting me.
Great. Yeah. It's
fantastic.
Our pleasure to have you. So I guess maybe I can lead off with you, Rami. So of course you are you and Assaad share an affinity for keeping an eye on the market and knowing what's going on all the time. So given that you are based in the Middle East region, can you kind of give us your perspective on what's going on and things that you're seeing as it stands now?
Well, we've seen, I mean, you said it, 26 years in the region. I've seen the bad, the good, and the ugly. So, and each ugly comes with a different theme. This time the theme was, unfortunately, pandemic, which is the COVID-19, but every theme is as a learning curve for us. So as it stands, Middle East, and as I've implemented before, it's always been consistent into the production, and there's many factors towards that and why. And basically, we didn't see much effect as being seen around the world for the activity drop. For example, on the drilling side, we're seeing 20 to 30% average. Some countries, they go to 10, some countries up to 40, which is not so bad compared to the others. Intervention is as busy as it is, which is definite to keep the brownfields producing with the less decline rate. And decline rate, basically, it's a must. In some of the fields, it can reach up to 12%, some others 2%, depend on the maturity of the reservoir. And on the project side, and basically, we didn't see much sanctioned projects that moved to 2021. I would say about 20%, which is a fantastic ratio. So, and overall, this region is still actually driving expenditure, and we believe that next year is going to be busier.
We've seen, and to that point, Rami, you're right, that we've seen worldwide activity shrink quite a bit. I think the Middle East has maintained to a great extent the size of the activity, which is also why I think it's important to give a spotlight to the region. You brought up Brownfield, Rami. This is a topic where today we're talking about a lot less demand than there is supply. In fact, we're seeing a shifting landscape when it comes to who's the top producer in the world. Give us a little bit, maybe the background on why brownfields and why do we think operators in the region, the Middle East today, are going to focus on those before others?
Definitely. Well, Assaad, brownfield is basically, it's a unified language for all the operators, whether you are an NOC, whether you are an IOC, or whether you are a medium size or a small size company, because this is your consistency into the production or profitability. And mainly when we talk about brownfields today, and as I mentioned, brownfields are the fields that has been developed and where the investment has been put. But due to two factors, mainly reservoir characterizations or facilities efficiency, and I mean all the way from the well to the network to the facilities, there is a decline rate that you cannot escape. And the unified language around it is how do I maintain or stabilize that decline rate from not going below that and basically keep on producing with less OPEX and evading the CAPEX. So brownfield today, if you look at the expenditure ratio in Middle East on brownfield, it always was 3-to-1 ratio. So I'll give you an example. If you talk about, which is an averaging $50 billion of expenditure into the brownfield, your greenfields would be around 20 or around 19. Now this year is an exception because, as said, there is a lot of, some expenditure that has been evaded from exploration, reduction in drilling, and some sanctioned projects. So this year is about the ratio 4-to-1. On any cases since the last 20 years, brownfield expenditure is double or more on the ratio due to its importance for the consistency of production.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned decline rates. I think when we say decline rates in the US for shale, it's an entirely different story than what decline rates in the Middle East are. I think what it is, it's 6, maybe 7% in the Middle East is the last I heard, I think, in ATCE last week.
Absolutely. Averaging 6-7, you're spot on. Some fields are 2, especially the giants, right? And it depends on the maturity, on the age of the field, and there's a lot of characteristics with the lithology that intervene with that. Correct. So I would say 6 to 7.
Okay. So I want to drill a little deeper on that, Rami, and take that. If we're seeing brownfields maybe take the lead in terms of attention from operators today, the capital expenditure being a very sensitive topic, So operators must be perhaps leaning more towards spending more on the OpEx side to ease up that production enhancement. With 6% decline, what are operators doing to get that recovered?
Well, there's a lot of course, operators, they have already developed and they have the best in class of teams when it comes to debottlenecking engineering departments. EOR is part of your recovery of oil or recovery of gas. And all of these methods today used, even on reservoir modeling, on re-entry in the wells, whether offshore or onshore, are today's operators' ways into tackling or stabilizing the production. But unfortunately, as we said, if you look at the Middle East in particular, when the first well was drilled 60, 70 years ago, the most of the fields that have been developed were plus 30 years. And the decline rate with the age of the field is going stronger. And this is where the need for technology and different processes to hit in as a stabilization for that inconsistency to the production.
So, I mean, I know one of the things that you're focused on, Rami, is certainly having those conversations with customers and really helping them understand, for those that are interested in development of brownfield plays, how they can take advantage of those through some of the innovations and technologies that I know many within NOV, including yourself, have helped to help bring to market. So could you talk a little bit about that? Maybe just a high level for those that might not be familiar that NOV has some really innovative ways to help those that are really interested in that space.
Absolutely, Michael. I mean, on a high level, when you talk about brownfield and decline rate, so why decline rate happened? There is two main reasons for the decline. One is completely a reservoir and lithology reasons. So, for example, to simplify it for you, you cannot expect your production, which you have done 10 years ago, is similar to today. You have water influx. You have sometimes API of the crude oil changes. Sometimes you have solids coming in. So that changes in the characteristics of production is one of the main reasons for decline. How many times you have heard the term water cut is getting higher? No, doesn't matter what the reason is, but eventually it is a reservoir problem. The other thing is, which is called facilities efficiency. And when I say facilities, to some people it may occur, it means the production facilities. And I would use the other term facilities, even the well integrity is a facility. So for us, basically, failure in the well integrity, whether from casing corrosion or whether interacting with blockage of asphaltene or other changes of hydrocarbon accumulation, all of this is failure to the wells. When it comes to the facilities themselves, to simplify it, just try to treat the facility as a car. So if you have a car that was built in 19, let's say 90, you wouldn't expect that the efficiency is the same in speed and torque and everything as today. This is metal, this is mechanical. You have fluids with characteristics, solids are coming in. So basically the efficiency of that separation or the efficiency of that production goes down. And the pain around it is operators sometimes might have to think that we have to put a new capital, whether it is from flow lines because of corrosion, or whether it is from facilities that are failing in separation and producing or not being able to handle the water or not being able to do a proper separation. So this is where NOV is well located in these times where the production increase and optimization from not using the capex is set. And here's some examples. I'm going to roll back into the facility and the old car. So as we said before, that the operators are well stated and basically they have a good infrastructure into debottlenecking engineering. Debottlenecking, they work around the facility. And they work especially in terms when you have onshore, they are more flexible in adding some of the component of low-cost capex. In offshore, you cannot do that. When you have an offshore production platform, you're bound by whatever it is there. But eventually, if you have to take a decision into building a new capex, that might lead to the uneconomical economic of producing from that reservoir, because what matters in the end is your break even into oil price. So if you put a facility of $200 million over a remaining asset of 50 million barrel, and you do the calculation, your break-even price might go to $50, $60 per barrel. You have to shut it down, and you're bound by leaving that remaining reserve, which is recoverable, down there. So what does NOV do? And here's some examples into when we talked about technology. NOV, as we all know, is, I mean, we invest mainly in a lot in technologies, because our main mission statement is to empower the local market with technology. But if I add another chapter to the technology, I would call it innovation to the technology. So if you take, for example, a product like FiberSpar, which is spoolable fiberglass systems, first thing that comes to your mind, oh, fantastic. It can replace metal flow lines because it has a longer life into total cost, 20, 30 years of no corrosion and no failure to the pipe, fantastic. But if I take the innovation part of that fiberglass FiberSpar or the spoolable pipe is injection. So a lot of times you'll find a conglomerate of flow lines just sitting over there, and some of them are shut down because they have so much corrosion that you cannot, it's too expensive to take them out. One of the innovations we can do with FiberSpar is actually we can inject it into the existing flow lines and pipe, whether it is undredged below ground or it is above the ground. So that's an example.
Interesting.
When we talk about, again, you're back to facilities. What we do, one of the things we do in one of our business units is retrofit and upgrade. So why retrofit and why upgrade? And we have over 55 jobs being done globally very successfully, whereas we go into the facility and we just change the internals of the separators, right? And we model it. We might add sometimes technologies like coalescers that increases the droplet of the size of the water of oil for better efficiency. On all means, we are ending up with an average between all of our jobs, 20-22% of increase in production. Now, if you do the calculation, you go into facility and your oil production, let's say, is 1,000 barrels. And because of that retrofit, which is not a capex and very cheap, I mean, proportionally, you're ending up with 20% in production. That is what I call is basically you're stabilizing your production. You want to produce more, you can't put the capex, you have to put an opex, which is better. It serves definitely fantastically on the offshore because space is not a virtue, an advantage that you can have. And so basically, NOV has been very instrumental today in actually addressing these problems. And when we talk about the COVID-19, we talked about the ugly and the good, the ugly, and the bad. Mm-hmm. And this is ugly. The ugly, when you think about, okay, so one of my bottlenecks is my drop is because I can't change my teams because of COVID-19. Fine, I want to go into automation, or I want to do downhole EOR. But today we have the EOR, we have the surface EOR. That's something that we created on our own. If you're enhancing the oil recovery from re-entry and intervention, we can do it also on surface, and the impact is fantastic.
Right.
So
I think some of the things that you've raised have certainly piqued my interest. I know there are folks that are watching as well, Rami, that probably have some questions as well. I've seen a few trickle in. So if you're watching us on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, and have a comment or a question on anything that we've been discussing, feel free to put that in, and we'll actually try to address that on air here in just a little bit when we bring Shelby back in. But no, this is really interesting, and as always, I've learned to read Assaad's eyebrows and his face, and I think he's got a question. Yeah, I think he's got a question looming in the back of his mind.
It's coming. It's brewing in my head for sure.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Rami, I hear you say capex is tight. If we're able to enhance EOR with other means than what operators are doing today, then that's a win, because it shifts to becoming more of an expenditure of an opex to maintain and upgrade. We see operators doing some debottlenecking, and you mentioned these are some world-class teams over there. How is this different? I mean, FiberSpar, and I think we have a facility in the region that not too long ago was inaugurated. How else are we doing that? And what are some other examples of innovation that you've brought, like putting the fiberglass pipe in steel pipe?
Well, you're asking two different questions. One is debottlenecking. How does it work? At the same time, how is fiberglass contributing to the main theme of this episode? If I understand you right, correct?
Yep.
So I'll tackle the first part, which is debottlenecking. As said, debottlenecking is a solution that you do for your facilities as an interim or a temporary fix. That's good for today, but that fix changes, and that fix is not permanent. What we do is something more advanced, which is retrofit and upgrade. Instead of tackling around the piping and the valves and the flow regulation to optimize the production or the efficiency of the production, we go and fix that old 30, 40-year facility of preparation and basically bring it for another good 10, 15, or 20 years of production. That's the difference between debottlenecking and retrofit and upgrade.
Okay.
So on the second one of fiberglass, when we talk about fiberglass, I mean, this is, I can't say this is the new toy on the ground. This has been there since ever, but the understanding and the evolving thinking of the NOCs in particular around the benefit of fiberglass and their dedication has led us to invest in Saudi Arabia on the second manufacturing facility due to the need of tackling a lesser cost into OPEX that will come to the operator. By that, contributing to lowering even the cost of barrel, not only on the long run, but also on the short and medium run. I gave you an example of field rehabilitation of piping. I gave you an example of temporary flow lines or testing sometimes the satellite fields and deploying it as fast as possible without having to wait for the conventional carbon steel welding and etc. And that's aside from the benefits that can tackle whatever characteristics are from the fluid, whether high water cut, low water cut, and the benefit around this one is it's a solution that fits for all fluids. It's a solution that fits for every single problem that you have when it comes to production.
That's great, and I think Michael, if I look at your eyebrows, I think you got one that's proven.
Well, you know, I'm about as predictable as it comes, because one of the things that I thoroughly enjoy is the fact that even in the most challenging of markets, you've shown us, Assaad, that there's always a silver lining. So I like to kind of pose that question to you, Rami. You know, like you said, I mean, even though things can be challenging, there are always opportunities on the horizon, and there are always things that are giving us glimmers of hope. So the things that you're seeing right now as you're in the Middle East, are there areas, and I know there's lots to cover, but are there specific areas that you're particularly excited about, that you see developing on the horizon? And I'm not asking for your secret playbook, but I know that there are certain areas that you're excited about.
Well, definitely everything is exciting.
Yeah.
So that's a good question. Well, I would say today, if we tackle the high-level theme, which is water production is a global problem with the 5-to-1 ratio, right? We look at the Middle East. In some countries, that ratio is 10-to-1. We look at another ratio into another country, it's 1-to-1 almost, or 1.3-to-1. But eventually, with the increase of water influx and production, you have increase in corrosion, increase in OPEX.
Yep.
So that advantage that everybody was living into the production of oil barrel, or the cost of lifting, which varies between $6 to $12 almost averaging in Middle East, might change in the future and will change in the future. So today I can say we're well placed into countries like Saudi Arabia and Oman, especially when it comes to that theme of produced water. I believe we have a lot to offer. In other countries, we're looking into, when we talk about the brownfield, and especially on the offshore side, we're looking more like India into retrofit and upgrade into some of the facilities, as work is in the pipeline now. ONGC is quite interesting into that level. We're seeing also a big interest from Egypt coming towards the retrofit and upgrade of those facilities. I believe soon enough we're going to be hearing some good news over there. ADNOC has and Aramco and KOC as leaders for innovation. You can see that they are sharing their list of challenges when it comes to production. They have more interaction with us, basically, when it comes to the technologies related to stabilize or increase production and overcoming the high OPEX. So I hope, Michael, I answered your question in a general overview. Definitely,
Yeah,
I would
no,
go
absolutely.
more, but we want to be fair.
Yeah, sure. No, that's good. And so,
And
yeah, to that point, I've been looking through as we've been going on, and I think one of the hallmarks of a great guest like yourself is when you're actually able to answer those questions as they're coming in. So I really appreciate you doing that. So maybe to that point, I think we'll go over to Shelby. And
I think Michael, just to that point on Rami, kind of to echo what he said, I think there's like in every challenge or in every depressed environment comes challenges, and with every challenges comes opportunities. We've seen that on this part of the world. Talking about the Middle East, it takes drilling less than 1,000 wells per year to produce 10 or 12 million barrels a day from the Middle East, but it took something like 20,000 wells in the shale world to produce that same amount. I think the dynamics are very, very different. And what we're seeing today, and we talked a little bit about this the last time, it is earnings season, and we're seeing these earning reports trickle in still. And the overall environment has been that there is a need for diversification. International has been a better contributor to these companies' activity. But I think it's a great ground. I mean, the Middle East as a whole, as a region, is a great place for really for technology, for innovation, even for carbon footprint reduction. That's something that's been adopted. We're seeing more and more. We spoke with ADNOC. We're seeing that Aramco has been talking about that again last week in ATCE. There was a lot of talk about that. And how can we turn oil and gas into a more less carbon emittive industry? So to Rami's point, I think one of the biggest wins here is innovation. How can we change not just how we produce, but also the business models? How do we get innovative in how we commercialize and get our products to market in order to, at the end, really, the end goal being reduce that cost per barrel, which I think Rami touched on really well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's great. All right. Well, let's go ahead and appreciate the perspective, Assaad. We're going to actually go ahead and bring in Shelby Dumaine to get some insight for us and see what questions we can get to you, Rami. We never know what'll come out, but I think it's always something interesting. So what do you have for us, Shelby?
Absolutely, Michael. And I wanted to say that's one of my favorite parts about the comments is you never know what to expect. It's always fun reading those from our viewers. So Rami, I have this question. And this one kind of comes, we see in the comment section a lot, especially on LinkedIn, a lot of people who are maybe new to the industry or are returning to it, maybe, coming back to oil and gas. And I think especially in this kind of, unprecedented kind of crazy time that we're in now, what advice would you give to people, again, who are either new or returning to oil and gas and looking for a career?
Well, you always start with the same thing: is accept change as it is. It's very unfortunate to what's happening to the oil and gas in terms of employment. It's an evil that we're living through. But I believe the bad times is, we hit the bottom rock of the events of unemployment. I believe I'm talking about Middle East in particular. Next year is going to be better. Okay. So basically, when everybody is hearing the same thing, you want to go back to the oil industry, adapt the innovation, adapt the technology. It's good to listen and learn more from the industry where it is going. So, you can adapt certain themes related to the green, for example, industries, which basically power efficiency and everything, or you can adapt to technologies that reduces cost, whether from drilling, intervention, or production. The other thing is, I would invite all these people to be more innovative. Do your own research. Doesn't matter where you get it from, whether it's academic from universities or from the companies. Today, the oil operators, all of them are looking into innovations and solutions. So to ride that train, you have to be very informative. For the new generation, I think, we learn from these guys. I can mention 100 and plus examples of this. They are the latest generation when it comes to innovation, the way of thinking, the mindset which has been put there. Also for them, since these guys are coming new to the industry, their hunger for learning is more and more, and sometimes sharing, adapting also another theme or a theme on their endeavor would serve them good into what they want to focus on. So basically for the new incomers, it's very important to know what to focus on. What do you want to focus on? Which actually theme you like more? It's the success comes from something you like, not from something that is driven by the market.
Great insight. Really appreciate your perspective. With almost 3 decades of riding the ups, downs, side, backwards, and everything in between, I think that's great advice and perspective to keep in mind. So thanks for that, and certainly for your perspective today on brownfield development and technology, and that we really appreciate your perspective. So been speaking with Rami Bakir, who is the Vice President of Operations for NOV for the Middle East North Africa region for the completion and production solutions segment. So Rami, thanks for joining us today.
So Michael, and thank you, Assaad. It was a pleasure.
Good to have you.
Thank you.
All right, Assaad. So I know that we're continuing these conversations as we look ahead. I know that we're going to be covering additional regions in the future. Can you give us maybe a little bit of peek behind the curtain as to what that might look like as we continue on?
It looks like our next region, Michael, is going to be Latin America. We're going to give a spotlight to the activity over there, to some of the players, to some of our own people in that space, in that market, and really shedding some light on what are the challenges and offerings in that space. I think those regional series give a different taste, a very special zoom on what's happening there. And I think it'd be worthwhile. If there's another region after that, that'll probably also come in due time.
All right, great. Well, looking forward to that. I know that we're rounding out 2020, which has been it has been a year. So, yeah. But we've made it this far, and looking forward to get into 2021. So certainly going to be glad to get your insight and perspective as we do that. So thanks for that, Assaad.
Thank you, Michael.
And certainly want to thank all of our viewers for joining us today and for this conversation. We always appreciate your comments, your feedback, and your ideas. So if there is anything that we can do to make this a more valuable show and conversation for you, please let us know. Again, that email address we'll put on the screen is simply askassad@nov.com. And if you send us a note, we'll do our best to reply back to you and also hopefully get your ideas, comments, or suggestions incorporated into the show. So from all of us here at NOV, thanks for joining and for watching and listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.